Today we're taking a look at another event, this one from quite a few years ago at this point, and that is a Minecraft Monday. I'm Joey Capollo, joined by Gilan.
Hello.
And Gilan, what do you remember about Minecraft Monday?
I mean, to me, it feels like it was just the first Minecraft event. It kind of feels like, I mean, it wasn't, but that's what it kind of feels like of what we now view as Minecraft events. These kind of uh once a month, or actually, Minecraft Monday was once a week. It's hard. I
Hard
can't
to
believe it was
realize.
once a week. Um, but this is kind of like continuous moving forward to number 9 and 10, 11, like moving forward. Something that MCC and Block Wars and a bunch of the other ones that we've watched, like Mayhem, have started doing, and it kind of feels like it kind of started the Minecraft scene. You can make an, I think, yeah, you can make an argument
You
that kind of
make an
started
argument.
it kind of started the
The modern era.
Minecraft, yeah, the modern era of Minecraft events that we're
Yeah.
in now.
There's a reason we start with number 9 of Minecraft Mondays, because the first few were only like Hunger Games, like this, a bunch of rounds of that. In the event, there were teams of 2 and however many pairings they got to sign up. It was made by somebody we don't need to talk about. But really, this was the event that kind of went like, oh, mini games and Minecraft are fun, and if we get a bunch of content creators together, it seems even more exciting. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to watch from Phil's POV, as you can see. And Gillen start it in 3, 2, 1, start. And this is in the intro of it. They're in the first game already, which is going to be the Hunger Games to start. They get a little time to explore that starting area, and they go into it. His teammate, I believe, is Super Travs. I believe. Let me get a fact check if he would look to his right for a little bit. But the very first Minecraft Monday was kind of just a joke idea because there were Fortnite Fridays slash other kind of events going on in the space in 2019 or was it 18?
It might be. Was it summer of 2019? Or am
It
I
does
blanking? Was
say
it 20?
I will fact check that, but it's either 20. I think it's
Oh, it says
2019.
8/19. Yeah.
Well, that's
I don't know.
19th of August. Come on,
Yeah.
Gillen.
Oh, I see. Oh, that makes more sense. I thought that. Yeah, it was summer. That's right.
But with the idea of being like, oh, let's try to get content creators meant to be like an event, come together, play in all these games. And the first few, obviously, won by Technoblade, as he kind of started his meteoric rise in popularity as part of Minecraft Monday and then into the Dream SMP. But it was kind of the first event that brought all these different people in the Minecraft community together and was like, hey, just play, be funny, show off some skills, and just have a good time. And we're gonna see that. We're gonna see the age of how like some of these things aren't great, but they were still good enough at the time. Because by the end of Minecraft Monday's reign, the first MCC launches like not soon after, and comparing the two is just they're leagues apart in terms of production and such.
Yeah. I think the other big thing is that I think if people have ever asked like us to watch MCC, I think if we were to watch an MCC, we'd actually go back and watch like 1 through 3, one of those, because I think it would be also a great idea to look back at see how far MCC's gone. Because I know I've gone back and watched like the admin POV of some of the early ones. And if you're ever working on an event and you look at MCC and you're like, I don't understand how an event can get that far, go back and watch the original one, because there was scuffed stuff. There was things you didn't realize weren't really set up yet, like compared to the one that, I mean, as we're recording this, the one that just happened yesterday.
Yeah,
They're leagues apart. They might as well be a different event if they didn't have the same name.
for sure. And it's a case of even though that first one may have been more scuffed, comparing that first one to this iteration of Minecraft Monday or the later editions of it, it's still leagues apart.
Oh
We're
yeah.
gonna see it when we switch between games in particular, how there's just not systems really set up for that. And as well, the noticeable thing you might see is we're playing in Minecraft 1.8. It's the old PvP system, which
Yeah,
means
seeing someone swing an axe that fast is messing with my brain.
yeah, it feels wrong. And that's Phil killing Dan TDM. Like
And then
those are
Jerome is behind him.
Jerome's behind. Like these are all the names you later would see like a couple months later in MCC. So this kind of started with like made a bunch of communities come together in Minecraft Monday, and then MCC kind of I don't want to say piggybacked off of it because they would have been successful without this happening for sure. But it was just this kind of set the scene, set the stage up for them to then be able to be more successful because people already understood what the format was supposed to be.
Mhm.
even if MCC's format is much different. We're gonna also skip around a lot because there is a lot of dead time as Filza is dead.
Mhm.
So you'll see some cuts that I made as we get to each games. I think we're gonna cut from here to the end of this first Hunger Games, just to see who wins there.
And speaking of dead time, I'm surprised we've gone this far into this video not complaining about survival games, Joey.
Yeah,
You usually
I've
do that in the
said it. I've said all I needed to
first
say about it. If you've watched any of them survival games, it's a very difficult game to have an event just because there's always going to be dead time for the players that are dead. Um, and there's just not a lot for them to do. Like you can call out for your teammates, sure, that's good, but when your whole team is dead, you kind of just watch. And it's not great. It's not a lot of fun. It's kind of boring. It's not a lot to riff off of. There's not a lot to do with it. As well, there's the issue of
Mhm.
different loot options and there's RNG and stuff you get. Apparently, I forgot to cut after this one because I wanted to give us space to talk about all these things we just talked about.
Mhm.
And as well, back when if you're playing an event in Minecraft 1.8, it's gonna have much more limited options. And then uh, for that case, there's just going to be not the level of polish you'd come to expect from later events. Like we're gonna,
And
yeah.
talking about actually mentioning polish, for this you can actually see that like Minecraft Monday didn't really have a texture pack. It's just the vanilla, or if
Mhm.
a YouTuber had one that they could use it, a streamer had one they could use it. Um, but you can also see like the scoreboard is, I mean, the score. This is actually because it's 1.8. You don't have the ability
Phosphorus.
of using core shaders, so the numbers are still there.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of like it feels like you're on something like Hypixel or something like similar kind of
There's the cut
thing.
finally.
It's the 1.8 limiting
Mhm.
how a game is, and that's one of the big reasons if people are wondering like, oh, why aren't there more 1.8 events? It isn't always the PvP because there's always going to be people who enjoy 1.8 PvP. Even a lot of streamers might be happy to play in a 1.8 PvP event. I think the big deal for as a developer working in older versions of Minecraft is just a nightmare because
Mhm.
like stuff gets taken away from you that's really cool and that allows you to make very well polished events. Like MCC could not exist in 1.8
Yeah,
because a lot of the tech it uses it doesn't work.
for sure. And it's a case of with 1.8 as well. You're restricting people who play the modern version of the game now and are used to the way things are, and you're like, let's go play the older version. And at some point, likely most Minecraft players, even though we know Hypixel is the biggest multiplayer server by far, most Minecraft players play on the current version.
Mhm.
It's just most Minecraft players don't play in events or even play multiplayer. Most Minecraft players play single player. But
I
what's
think one thing I mentioned is even though we consider Hypixel a 1.8 server,
mhm.
I would not be surprised how many players in Hypixel actually just join in the newest
From yeah,
version because a
exactly.
lot of the games do still work. Even some of the PvP ones, they effectively still work. You basically still spam click, and of course,
But
it feels weird from a client side. But if it's a kid who's just got Minecraft first time, they can't tell. They're just
yep.
playing the game.
But if you notice right there, the scuffness is already in that basic and like how you get from game to game. Players had to then
Mhm.
go to that NPC, click on it, and get teleported to the next game. There was no
Mhm.
auto system to take you there. If you didn't go, like if you didn't get sent, you were screwed. But apparently everyone makes it, every time. Because there was also money on the line for each of these events every week. It
Mhm.
was the case that I'm not saying players cared some more, but the players who were looking to win were looking to win.
Yeah.
And especially since an event of duos, and then this event, I think there were 32, so that's 16 teams, 16 duos.
Mhm. Yeah.
You
So
knew kind
16
of
teams.
quickly if you're a duo that had a chance to win.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but that's already like a case like this. We go into a bingo here, which their bingo went through several iterations because they'd often pick items that were just not fair to get. So they'd have to then
Mhm.
put spawners at the player spawn of certain mobs that are then there. So then they're able to get the items they need to craft the things. Like that ender chest they need blaze rods for. Well, they give you blazes right here instead of making you go to the nether. Like already they've like taken away some of the things that make it a regular bingo or vanilla bingo. Oh, you need an ender pearls as
And
well, of
I
course.
also I like the fact that it is just like I don't think Minecraft Mondays had, like, a build team. Like, it
No,
just kinda
yeah.
seemed like there was just an admin who shows up and they just kinda got world edit, made a box, put the spawner in there, and called it a day.
I'm pretty sure all the builds they had came from other existing ones. Like all the survival games ones are
Mhm.
other builds from
Yeah, old
elsewhere.
maps.
All of the Skywars ones are old maps. So they were doing this with I think just one developer.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at this point.
And that one developer, when it was the week they weren't there, which was the 13th one, it was just where the hacker got in and things broke and lots of things went wrong. And then it couldn't end. It just ended early, I should say.
Mhm.
But talking about the game just for a second, the idea of bingo was like they were trying to get rid of just PvP games because Techno kept winning all the events. And so, what were you gonna do if only a PvP players winning all the events? Like, okay, let's get something that's not PvP.
Mhm.
Well, as we've talked about, the only other options like movement, and Techno's also a very good movement player compared to
Yeah.
the other people in this event. So like they're like, let's get some miscellaneous. And so that became bingo and find the button. And even build battle later, which build battle is problematic for many reasons.
Mhm.
Or at least difficult to implement well as a Mario, I should say. Not necessarily problematic. But in the case of this, the goal was to make it so like the survival players, people kind of just knew Minecraft to be good at it, like such as Philza here. But it's a case of there's a lot of RNG of trying to find the stuff you need to find of just going in the right direction from the world. And
Mhm.
also it's kind of boring.
It is a boring game. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that, if anyone who watches I'm guessing there's some overlap on people who might watch the, Nox Crew admin stream for MCC. There is kind of a joke in the MCC community of, like, bring back bingo and stuff. But they talk about all the time that, like, the problem with bingo is it's just a boring game. Like, it's just kinda survival, but, like, the fun of survival is, like, building stuff and, like,
Mm-hmm.
making things and, like, beating an ender dragon or something. It's not going and finding some random material and crafting it. So it just ends up not being the most fun game for people to play. There's no it ends up being a game of chance, as you mentioned, and, like, you don't really interact with other people a lot. Like, you can see, like, the best strategy in this game is for them to split up and do their own thing. Like, there's no
Mm-hmm.
teamwork.
What's especially funny here is so that the fence was for dark oak fence
Mhm.
instead of spruce. And so the admin realized, oh shoot, there's no dark oak anywhere on this map. So just spawn dark oak trees for them to
Yeah,
all
I was
cut
like,
down
"Why
then.
is there a dark oak tree in the snow flats?"
I forget how points are done in this, but I think that they're just given out based on um collecting the items. Like it doesn't matter how fast you are and just how many collect before one team finishes all of them. Phil's, you already made stick. There you go. You got it. Yeah, they just get 10 points for each item. So it doesn't really matter the speed,
Mhm.
which is fair then, because then it doesn't matter that that was a mess up at spawn. Everyone's going to get that when they go back to spawn for something. But it's just a case of like already it's scuffed in a sense of trying to pick what items it is for the bingo. And it's just not necessarily fun to just be wandering for 5 minutes and then dig straight down to hopefully find a cave. And
Yeah,
if
'cause I guess it is this thing where I realized what probably happened is that the developer just chose 9 interesting items for this
Mhm.
week's bingo, and then just made a default world and just put in a seed and then called it a day and said, "Well, hopefully they find it."
Yes. Like it literally looks like a default world, and I think what Noxtrew at least did, or Noxtrew did well with their version of Bingo, as I think is a much you can do it, is Bingo but fast version where all your items broke things quicker, so it was more fast paced, enjoyable, and it also
Mhm,
felt like they picked their worlds pretty well to ensure there's. I mean, there were still default worlds, or like just
mhm.
if you loaded it yourself, but it just felt like they were ones where any direction looked good, and it wasn't the case if you just go one way, you win.
Yeah, I actually wonder if it might be a better idea. I haven't done this myself, but if someone is thinking of making kind of a bingo style game, it might be better to just get a world that looks nice, just visually, like oh, like this is a cool world to play, and it has a bunch of biomes nearby, and then run around the world and see what items you can get, and
Hmm.
then make the bingo card around the world, not the bingo card first and then the world,
Yeah.
because then you can kind of you can even run like if you have testers, run a test where people just go around and collect as much stuff as possible. Like there's no card. It's just like collect as many items as possible and see what people get. and from that figure out which things you
Yeah,
want
you have a test
to
where
do.
it counts how many unique items each person gets, and then
Hmm.
you go, all right, all these things are gathered. Let's put them in. But like, look at that. Phil's dug straight down in darkness just to bedrock, and there's no cave. Now he's gonna just dig along to find
Hmm.
a cave. It's not exciting to watch. It's not fun gameplay for the person playing. It's just kind
Hmm.
of waiting. I'd also be curious the idea of a bingo, but it is in like more of a city-esque or like a town where you could destroy
Hmm.
everything in the town too. And so it's less like just finding stuff in regular survival, like underground or wherever the right things would be, instead
Hmm.
exploring a space that people are less familiar with.
Yeah, I remember. I forgot what server. It might have been like an anarchy server I was playing on, or like a survival server. One day for like April Fools or something, they changed the map to be like a city map of a planet Minecraft. And one of the buildings, like there was a Statue of Liberty that was made entirely out of diamond blocks. So everyone just ran over and
Yeah.
started mining diamond blocks and had full diamond. And it was kind of actually a fun experience because it's like it kind of broke Minecraft progression, and it was just like, what can you find scattered around the city to help you build stuff? It's kind of interesting.
Obviously, you wouldn't want a city
Because
like that that gives you the best things immediately, but some level of like explore that versus just go caving. Because I mean, it's you instead of just caving like this, why not do like the ABBA rules caving that like Beef would do on Hermitcraft? You're like competing against other people to find the most stuff fast as possible. That seems more enjoyable than kind of trying to find these obscure items you don't really care about. And then Phil's is having this moment of waiting for crops to grow. Riveting gameplay to stand here and watch seeds grow.
of course.
And as well, you also have the added difficulty of if you're trying to get vanilla mobs to spawn vanilla wise. They don't like doing that on a server when there's lots
Yeah.
of people spread out among the world.
Yeah, if you were to do that, it would be the best idea would either have spawners of some sort or have a plugin that spawns stuff around people randomly or something like that. Or like yeah, maybe just have an area that spawns them and people run over there.
I think there are ones that plugins that exist for that to ensure like they stay only around certain players, and they also despawn it more aggressively than vanilla Minecraft does. But it's a case of regardless, if you're counting on vanilla spawns to matter in your game, it's gonna be very difficult for that.
Yep.
I left this in here just to show how long this took of standing here
Like
to
it
wait for
hasn't
crops to
grown.
grow.
Like I think one of them went. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
One
That's
of them
still
grew.
far.
And it's still so far away.
And like this is just
Wait,
what it
is
was.
every team at this point too? I'm guessing every team is eventually going to just reach the point where they're waiting for wheat to grow.
I think I must, because I saw a lot of teams at 8 for 9 in the chat.
Yeah.
And then I know the team that wins short like very soon now. But it's just a case of bingo is a flawed game when you're doing it in this kind of vanilla world and you don't have the items picked very specifically. But if you want to do it, there's a bunch of different ways. Then you could do your own bingo within an event. As I said, you could do it within like a town format. You can do it the MCC style, where you able to collect items quicker because your tools being stronger. You could do it in a bunch of different ways to just flesh out the idea. I think it just needs to be a more innovative concept than just here's a default world, go find the stuff.
I mean, we recently looked at Crown Quest, kind of like the forager type game they had. And they kind of had this idea of instead you have this like centralized area where the team comes together and like pushing the team mechanic of it and like making people work together a bit more. Because as I mentioned earlier on, one of the problems with this game is there isn't really teamwork. Like if it's actually better to divide and conquer than work together, and it kind of results in it just being a solo game.
There's also not enough items for like you to collect half of part of one of the items for the recipe and then share it with the other person. Like it's just a case of like there's no reason to do that when there's only 9 items for it. I also wonder if there could have been the ability to cross team. Imagine you're at 8 items and you know some like your friend on another team's only at like 5 or 6, and you just drop them the bread they need or the wheat, and then you just have that. But yeah, Phil's is literally in a dark cave and there's no mobs because they just don't spawn normally when you're on a server like this.
Peaceful.
I don't know because we saw the spawner working.
Oh, okay.
It's so hard for things to spawn like that. Look, Vic's are literally giving out wheat. Or he's trolling. But it's a case when you have a game like this, it's really easy for a cross-team situation to arise, and that's something you want to not have happen because it can cause big issues if your players are then upset with each other.
Yep.
And then it finally ended. Phil's got to sit in that cave for about 3 minutes and watch wheat grow. I do like. I found this funny, but I also like at the same time of how they did their score system, because everyone would like load in back to the lobby and they'd run over to see what the scores were. And it was just kind of funny because you could tell who like cared the most to run over and see it immediately, whereas other people are like, I'll walk over, it's fine, I'm not worried. And it's just funny to see that. XQC in chat yelling, of course. This really brought together like people from everywhere.
Oh yeah, like I forgot what. Especially, I think this is the big thing that like the teams of two did. It really meant that. I mean, one problem we talked about. I think we had a video where we talked about like a bit. Like we talked to Pickles about this, like balancing teams and getting people to have good chemistry and not argue. When you have really small teams, you can just get two people who know each other and don't have any relation to anyone else in the event and put them on a team and it's fine. Because you have a bunch of these teams, you could just throw them in and they're only going to talk to them, so it works out fine.
It's also the case is you can't really expect a 16 team event to be balanced where all 16 teams have a chance. Rather, it's like 6 to 8 have a chance each week.
Yeah.
So it allows for like, I don't know, it stratified who was playing to have fun and who was playing to win, which I think can be a good thing, especially when you just have that many teams. Back to the build conversation for a second too. Yeah, this is 100% a build you can download yourself of just like the SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, isn't there game is there that we played this on this map? Like I forgot what.
Oh yeah, we did do something long ago. I forgot about that. Hey, they're talking to me in chat. Joseph, it's Joey.
But anyway, this is Find the Button. Find the Button is
the most loved or hated game of Minecraft Monday.
Like the like it's what Bingo Bingo but fastest MCC.
Yeah.
It's like one of those games where people make jokes that they should be brought back, but everyone deep down knows that everyone hates it.
It's all it is just find where the buttons are and click them. I think the reason why I think this game can be fun as a concept with purposefully designed maps, because it's a case of you can just explore world, like explore a thing. You're playing the whole time. You're like paying attention. You're engaged. Your chat's engaged, yelling at you for missing a button. There's points for different points for different strategies. Like if you go really far out, just try to find buttons, you're gonna get all these first, but you might not find as many as if you stay around spawn. I think what really hurt it was just the fact that they never did like a true custom map that was made for this game.
Yeah, and I mean you can look at like this map, like it's not the exactly most interesting. It was just someone once made a SpongeBob map and it's just kind of a flat world with sand piles. All these button locations. But it's like, yeah, it's one of those things. I also think like, you know, I've been playing Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom recently, and this reminds me of Korok Seeds.
Yes.
But I think the important thing about that game is that the Korok Seeds are like an extra little thing added on into the game. Like there's other gameplay they're supposed to focus on, and you like find the buttons over time. It's like that idea. So I think maybe a game like this could work if it's like part of another one. If there is some sort of, it could be like a PvP or survival games type thing where there's also buttons everywhere, so you're encouraged to run around finding buttons for extra points or something. Or I don't know, a tag game, but there's also the like to encourage you, like a hide and seek, but to encourage you not to stay in one place, you also can run around find buttons or something.
And like the same way like Murder Mystery on Hypixel, you find gold to then allow you fight back against the murderer.
Yep.
It would allow you as a hider to fight back against the seeker. Yeah. I also think it would be interesting. Like if this game is like 10 minutes or however long it is, every like 2 minutes or whatever, like you get a new movement option. Like imagine first 2 minutes you're just running around. 2 minutes after you get a horse. 2 minutes after you get elytra and fireworks, or maybe that's the last one. And then 2 minutes
didn't
after,
exist yet because we're in 1.8.
It didn't exist in this version, true. But 2 minutes after you have like ender pearls. So it's just there's a
Mhm.
bunch of different options of how you now get around, and it's not just running the whole time like I can or can't find anything. Also,
Yeah,
Philza, I
make
don't
the
think you
game
can put a
constantly
button there in
changing.
1.8. I don't think you can do that. But he really thinks there's one there.
Yeah, he believes.
I'm pretty sure. I think
I
you can
think
do
that's
that in
just
the.
a wall.
I don't even know if you can do that in new versions.
Oh, did he pull it off?
It's
No,
maybe.
it didn't.
No, it's I can't tell. There was also they had a map one week where they didn't realize there were a bunch of buttons already put on it,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Oh, and it didn't work.
no, it absolutely destroyed the
Oh,
point
it did.
system.
Oh.
Because that's the thing is it feels like the buttons were placed quote unquote randomly, and but
Mm-hmm.
there should be like some logic to it. Like why is there no button in this room that
Mm-hmm.
like is an upstairs room kind of hard to get to, like it's going out of your way, but there's nothing here, and there's also nothing in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a case of like if you did a custom design map where the buttons were like intentionally chosen where they were, I think the game could be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Instead you get this like middle feeling where like it feels like it could be fun, but it's not fun. It's just annoying. There was
Mm-hmm.
one
Yeah.
button for that whole tower, or two buttons, that wooden one sitting right there. Compared to that, literally just walking the road fills a found like five. Or in that pond where there were two. And it's just a case of there could be better ways to do it.
Um, watching this watching this again does remind me of actually how, especially compared to a lot of events, how actually simplistic a lot of these games are.
Yes.
And it makes sense because it is kind of thing where like survival games is already, I mean, there's very little. You just like have to track deaths and you put chests out. And I don't even know if they had like an automatic chest system or if they just manually did it in the map and then reload the map each time. Um, and especially for this game, like from a development perspective, it's pretty much just you have these buttons. You check when a player presses the button. You save the position or you give each position an ID and check if a player and have a list of like what buttons they've hit and you just add it to their score.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these games are simple and it makes sense because as you said, like it probably with just one developer. Um, you it's early on where it's just like just trying to get a bunch of mini games out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as we've mentioned, I think for the time, uh, this was kind of new and different than what people have usually experienced.
Yes. It's funny. The other issue with this game is because there were so many buttons in every iteration of it, the points it gave was very skewed.
Mhm.
Like whatever team that is finding 92 buttons was like
Yeah.
more points than the other three other games that teams have played. And so it's a thing when you're thinking about point balancing. This is actually a learning moment instead. When you think about point balancing and you want a game that gives lots of small point increments, that can be really difficult.
Mhm.
Because once that gives a lot of small ones, you need your other ones to scale relative to that.
Yeah.
And you can only give so small increments. Like if you give something increment of 1, but you're giving it 100 times, that's still 100 points. And even if you're trying to compare that to something where like I'm gonna give them 5 points for it, well, you now need that 5 point to happen 20 times. And so really quickly, team scores can get unbalanced.
Mhm. And that's why, especially if you're trying to figure out team balancing, that's why testing it over and over again, doing like point tests of a game just to see like what happens in different scenarios and scrambling teams of testers, try to make purposely a slightly unbalanced team and see if like how if a team is really good at this, like how could they just break the entire event by doing really well? Like, playing around with these ideas and then editing the scoring based off of that.
You can also run the numbers yourself and you're trying to figure it out and be like, if this team got all of the kills in the game, how much would that be? Versus if a team died immediately, how many points is that disparity? Another thing I think this is a speed parkour, which is something to be said. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about how they spawn into all the games. Is
Mhm.
every time the game they hit start, the game like actually starts. There's a countdown, but the countdown then puts them wherever the starting point is. And
Mhm.
as we see, instead, what a lot of events do is they do the game starts and then it starts the countdown where you're spawning at. So like in the same way like MCC's Ace Race, the game starts, you're in that loading room behind the starting line. So then when the timer goes down, you are playing the game rather than just immediately sending people into the game and trying to force you to orient to that really quickly.
Yeah. Wow, look, this is where all the race game and events started with this one.
Well, no,
Every event's
it
gotta have
started
a
with a
race game.
different one before this. It had the parkour dash or something. The one where the lava chases you
Oh, yeah, yeah.
was, I think, the first one, and then this came after. And as you can see, this is
Aggravating.
a miserable experience.
Yeah. One of the things, it's not even like there's a pretty map to look at. It's just blocks floating.
It's also
And then
not parkour anyone does.
oh yeah, definitely. It's just kind of yeah. It just kind of messes with your brain.
What's funny too is I think actually the fastest strat for like fills that keeps dying here at the diagonal is to just stop and then reline yourself up, run forward, reline
Yeah, yeah, I
yourself
can see
up,
some
line forward,
people.
are doing it. But it's just not an enjoyable experience. It's also only 9 checkpoints. Like it's actually like people are already past checkpoint 7 and 8, I think I saw. Like the fastest people finished in like 4 minutes, which is absurdly fast when you're comparing. Find the button was like 10 minutes at least. So it's a thing we said before, but like if your game is going, like games should be different lengths. They don't all need to be the exact same amount, but one shouldn't be a ridiculous amount longer or like 50% longer than another game. It just leads to one feeling really brutal and boring and time consuming, and then the other feeling like too fast. I don't have a whole lot more to say else when this one wasn't even a map. Like this is an old map as well you can download, I'm pretty sure. Or they made it, or there was a speed parkour map you download, and then this is a redone one after because they already used that one. Because if you notice, it's also just placing glass blocks. It's not. It's not that hard.
Yeah. And yeah, I think one thing with this is you can tell people who finish early. This is also the thing, if it shows up every week you have this event, it might have the same game. You just practice a similar map to it and get really good at it. And other people do not.
there's a whole conversation for that we'll probably talk. We haven't really talked about in any of a podcast skill, which is practicing for an event and what you do if players do
like
that.
Practice servers too.
Practice servers and that concept, which I don't really want to get into now because it doesn't really make sense for this what we're watching right now. But at some point we need to talk about it. And then look what we moved on to after that speed
Sky Wars.
It's just Sky Wars.
Good old Sky Wars.
And it's
I actually wonder if I don't know if it existed at the time, but there's a public Sky Wars plugin called like Sky Wars Reloaded, or there's another one I forgot. That's just like you can just download it and set up Sky Wars. And I would not be surprised if the event was just running that, because it would be kind of annoying if you're the developer to have to just remake a game that's been played on every server. So there's a good chance that this is just like
yes, the most like you could set this
like
up
just
yourself.
Taken out of. I mean, I already kind of recognize this map. The auto, yeah.
They even had in some of the earliest ones when they put in Sky Wars, it was literally Hypixel maps. And it's funny because like nowadays we talk a lot about like taking from like what can you take from another event in terms of inspiration / copying, like where's that line? And back at this time, it was literally everything was free for all.
Yeah,
because events
no
hadn't
one
happened yet.
Was really complaining about it yet.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. Which is not saying that it's not okay to complain about it. Like it's understandable, but basically nobody really thought about that. Like the idea of a server, like yeah, if you're a server and you're making people pay money to like be on your server, if you're stealing it, that's kind of rude to just take Sky Wars and put on your server and make people pay for a rank. But like if it's just an event with content creators, like what does that count as taking it? Like you haven't really thought about that yet.
And it's like those maps are publicly downloadable. So many of them are on Planet Minecraft. So like, why can't you use that? Sure, you should probably credit the people, then say, hey, I'm using this, or let them know. But others are like, hey, you can use my map for whatever. So why is this something you couldn't use it for? We've talked about it before. I'm not gonna rehash our thoughts on it, but I think in this case, like it was honestly fine to use these maps, because the whole point was to kind of make this event as accessible as possible to both play and watch.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, although we complain about the idea of like just copying stuff and using the same thing every time, being able to for anyone to join, like a lot of people in this event who may have not played another Minecraft Monday, there's a good chance that they've been on Hypixel if they do play Minecraft, and
Yes.
they're familiar with the concept of Skywars, and they can kind of go in. And as we saw, there's no tutorial for these. You didn't really have that
Mhm.
yet. There. I don't think there was like, were there even like messages in chat that tell you how to play, or was it just
I
throw you
think
in?
just the admin says stuff, and it's
Hmm.
like what like says what's point for when people ask. But yeah, there's really not a lot of tutorial. But the point being that this was also meant to be like a spectator event. Like it was meant to
Hmm.
be that people would like the hope was that a lot of people watch it'd be really popular. And so if you want a lot of people to watch, you need the games to be very understandable. You need the maps to be understandable. And their
Hmm.
solution to this was just use games and maps that people already know. And I think it did
Yeah.
have that added benefit. There were a lot like back then there was not as many viewers of Minecraft. This was when the resurgence started.
Hmm.
But you're still getting, I think, hundreds of thousands of people, 100,000 in that range, 100 200,000 range of people watching each week, which was crazy at the time.
Especially compared to now, or even with MCC. I don't think MCC. Well,
MCC
maybe.
hovers around like 110, 120 now in
Hmm.
these most recent ones, I believe. It might be less than that, though. I have not checked since the last post that said like viewership tracked for them.
Hmm. I know compared to like when you had Dream playing in it consistently, it's much
It
less.
was yeah, it was
And
like
with the Dream Event.
600,000 at one point.
Speaking of which,
Same right there. But yeah, so now we get to again another game that's
another
very
Hypixel game,
another
pretty
Hypixel
much.
game, literally TNT Run. And it's a case of like, sure, these games work, sure, they are fun. The issue though, when you play with games with that people have played before, is you get an experience difference and skill gap
Hmm.
very quickly. And they're also just at some point, once MCC came on the scene, these just weren't. This wasn't good enough.
Hmm.
An
Yeah.
event that doesn't really get talked about anymore, even though it came out at this around the same time, was Minecraft Saturday, made by what would become the EVNT team, or if they, I think they're already called that at the time. But the
Oh, I
goal
didn't
of
know they made Macro Saturday.
yeah, they did. But the goal of it was to basically be a better version of Minecraft Monday, but everything was still 1.8. Everything was still with these kind of games that people had played before.
Hmm.
And they had the issue of that once MCC came to the scene, MCC blew out all this out of the water. Said that if you want to like keep making Minecraft events, you need to up your quality to the extreme or you can't compete. Obviously, other things went wrong with in Minecraft Monday behind the scenes that aren't necessarily we're talking about, their drama and whatever. Person who's actually running it also sucked.
Hmm.
But it's a case of like once MCC showed what was possible, you couldn't relaunch Minecraft Monday in the same format. People would be like, I don't really care. Because
Yeah.
even like what's even the events we've watched recently, Minecraft Mayhem, Crown Quest, Minecraft Mania, like all of those are better in production than Minecraft Monday is
Hmm.
was.
Yeah. And they aren't offering tons of money per week. They don't have a prize pool. They couldn't afford a prize pool like that.
Yep. And so it's just crazy to see how far things have come in just a couple short years now. And it's why I keep saying I'm so excited for the future of seeing where like the next generation of events come from. And like when somebody can make an event that's not just 8 mini games with a finale game between the top two teams and have it be the event that's like this is the next thing. Because I think it'll happen at some point soon.
Hmm.
But we'll just have to wait and see who does it. Anything else to say about TNT Run?
No, I think you when you mentioned the fact that like you can go play this on Hypixel,
Yep.
it as a game, actually, I think it works as a game, like game design wise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also one of the games where you always kind of see the same people winning, and it's a very individual game.
Yep.
Which I mean, again, these are it's like a duo event. Um, I think one other thing is because it's available on Hypixel. I remember at the time, if a lot of times you might go into like a Phil's stream or something, and he'd be practicing it on Hypixel. We like he would actually be practicing it,
Mm-hmm.
because people could just practice it a bunch. So naturally, those people would constantly win. or get high up on rounds.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's an old game, and the reason it's stayed relevant is because it is a good quality mini game.
Mhm. And
There's
well,
not a
we
lot of
see
flaws.
iterations of it still pop up. Like Block Wars has Fire Feet, the original
Mhm,
version, the newer version, slightly different. But like things like that of just having it be more micro games an event rather than a full game seems to just be
mhm,
more um better for the whole event. What's really funny, I have one complaint about this game, Gillen, that's probably really obvious. Do you know what it is?
mhm.
About one shot, you just shoot. If you kill the person, they die in one hit. First team to 35 kills wins. What do you think my complaint is?
Um, I actually don't know. Is it the seizure-inducing lightning?
Yes, Gillen, the seizure inducing lightning every time somebody dies.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It is way too much. I'm guessing this game lasts about 6 minutes, maybe.
Mhm.
And if there's 32 players, if they each get like 10 kills, you're getting at least
320.
probably more than that. So you're probably getting kills every like a kill every second at least, and often more than a
That's what it
second.
looks like. I mean, like, if you look at chat, like,
Yeah.
there is, like, a oh my and then there's a bunch, and then it just goes crazy.
Like I don't even know how you're playing when you're just there. You're hearing the thunder, and then
Mhm.
your just screen is flickering. Like this is ridiculous.
Like, there are other ways to show that someone has gotten taken out. Like, you could have a ding sound instead, but only for the player that got the kill.
Only for your
Uh,
team, and maybe
yeah.
like there's
You
no reason
can
to tell everyone that got killed. This isn't survival games where
Mhm.
everyone when they die they're out for good. This is a game where people are dying 10 plus
Yeah.
times.
And actually, if you really wanted to keep the lightning, one way to fix this would be, and I don't know if it's possible because it is one, like it could work in 1.8, but it's hard from a development standpoint, is to basically have client, not client side, but
Gee, that was so much right there.
yeah, the whole basically having it so the lightning only gets sent to the team or player that got the shot, maybe the player who got the shot. Which basically means it's like packet-based lightning, because I think you can kind of just tell the player that lightning struck, and it'll just send it to them. So basically, you're only going to see it if you got the kill.
Mm-hmm.
And other people will just kind of go poof, or maybe there'll be a particle effect.
Yes. So I'm not gonna like. I think this game's fine-ish. I think it works better as a micro game than a full game because it is a very long time to do this. And I
Hmm.
preferred. Oh, I apologize for not remembering which event that was. They had a similar thing, but every time you got a kill, your weapon upgraded.
Was that pet?
It might have been Pat. I can't remember which one did it now. I need to have a list of all the games for each event we've watched because there's just been so
Hmm.
many now. But I prefer that version a lot more. It makes it just more interesting to
Hmm.
play. It makes it there's variance
Yeah.
to gameplay. You're not doing the same thing the whole time. The other struggle with this is the map design is just not there.
Hmm.
Like you're kind of just forced to all at all times be looking 360 around you where people are and just
Yeah.
hoping you don't get shot in the back.
Mhm. Which might be a purposeful design, because if you have people trapped in a corner, they could maybe camp from a certain angle.
Yeah.
But sometimes that might be actually a better idea because people can flank them and other
Mm-hmm.
things.
I think there's fine if you're holding an angle, but you still see, like if you're in that doorway, people can still come from two directions at you, but you can put your back at least against something.
Hmm.
And this version, it felt like your back could never be against anything. It seemed
So
very
basically a
frustrating.
Valorant map.
Yeah, not even that Valorant E, just a little more enclosed to have cover and such.
Well, the Valorant maps aren't that enclosed.
There are.
Just means
I
a bit more hallways for people to
Yes,
go
a bit more
down and
corridors.
less just open.
And then we move on to the classic of classics, the oldest, some would say, Minecraft minigame, Spleef.
Hmm. Yep.
There's not even a lot to talk about here. I think this is the most vanilla version of Spleef you can have, essentially. Anyone who has a Spleef game nowadays in an event has done it, has added more than this one to make it have something more interesting.
Hmm.
Also, the map design of this is literally OG.
Hmm.
Like one of the oldest ones. Like, look at our diamond wall out there.
Yeah. Beautiful. Diamond perimeter, I believe that's the
Yeah,
correct term.
yep. I mean, it's Spleef. It works fine. As you said, it doesn't really work as like a duo game very much. Like you kind of just are playing separately,
Hmm.
and it's okay. as
Mhm.
a full game. I know we have Spleef and Block Wars, but it is a, a little different thanks to having the the map being a little better designed and having teams be bigger. So there is the opportunity for team play more so.
Mhm.
Because I
Yeah,
think
because again, this just turns into an individual game.
this turns into an individual game. It turns into a very spread apart individual game where people like just claim their little islands and just snowball each other from very far away.
Yep. I do want to mention, of course, if you are thinking about doing a spleef game, first thing is that you always need to have a ranged weapon. I think that should be.
Yes.
I played in I think it was like the X Games test, and I think they eventually updated, but their spleef originally did not have
Snow.
any ranged snowball or thing. So I just trapped myself on an island and just stared at someone
Yep.
else until time ran out.
Because no one can do
um,
anything.
so always make sure that's. I mean, you'd probably figure that out by doing some tests.
Yep.
Of course, testing. Yes, that's how you figure out things.
The other thing that we've done in Block Wars that I didn't realize was a smart thing to do until I heard about it is you make it so you cannot change the snowball hotkey to like a keyboard button and just hold it down.
Mm.
Because that allows for like that machine gun snowball fire that's like impossible to deal with if you don't have yours set up that way. But you instead can change. You're able to set it up so players are only able to throw snowballs at a certain speed.
Yeah, giving it a cooldown.
Giving it cooldown on it.
Other thing, if you watch Block Wars, you'll notice that the decay on the first layer is it's much fast. The layer decay is faster.
Yes.
And it forces people not to just camp, because you can see currently Kevin Sparkles and Technoblade are just chilling.
Chilling on the top. Like if there wasn't their teammates to be spectating and say where the people were, they would never have seen Techno and Captain up there from the bottom layer. And so all it would have taken was either of them to just jump around and throw snowballs from above and take everyone out. But yeah, the decay. Also, I don't like random decay. That which is happening here. Block Wars does the border like shrinking end decay, which I think is just better functionally for so many reasons.
More predictable.
It's more predictable. You can like actually use it to force people in or out of the border to fight. It's just overall better rather than relying on the randomness of it to kind of force people down. And then Captain eventually comes down. But now look how far apart they are from each other still. Because the second layer doesn't even decay to like another several minutes. Which is a long time. I don't know if there's a whole lot else to be said about Spleef. We are almost at the end, and we're going to go into the last game, which is another Hunger Games round, and that ends the event. So I think we can talk about it now, Gil. What do we want to do for next week?
I would like to interview someone.
Yeah.
We've watched a lot of events.
We
So
just
I'd
don't
like
watch it. A bunch of Zoomers we are.
Dude, yeah. Which to be fair, I mean, it is hard to schedule stuff. If for any viewers, I understand that it's sometimes hard to schedule time to. When you have 3 people, it's infinitely harder than having 2.
Yeah. So let's ask the audience. Leave us a comment about who you'd want us to interview, whether they're about Block Wars team or one of the events we looked at previously. I've now been in contact with about somebody from each of those teams has reached out and said something. So let us know who you'd want us to talk to.
Yeah.
And we will see if we can make it happen for next week. If not, we'll watch another event. Because as you said, Gil, we could watch MCC 1. And just compare what we just watched today to that, which is obviously very, very different. I'm not here to complain about survival games again, Gil, and you can't complain for me.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, when I do see these old maps, it gives me some nostalgia. I think that's the saving grace here. Also, the random floating person. I don't
they
know.
They DC'd, I believe.
Oh, in air. That makes sense. Yeah. There's just not much to say about survival games. We talk about it so much.
It's the game that I want gone the most from the scene, but we just keep going back to it.
Well, I don't think gone is the word. I think changed. I think there's a lot of games and other events where if you actually think about it, they are survival games, but in a different way. Like for Block Wars, Sky Zone. Sky Zone pretty much is survival games, but like you've changed the game from just being run around, get loot, to actually thinking about, okay, forcing people onto these islands and giving them some new abilities, and making the game a bit more interesting while still
Mhm.
kind of keeping the spirit of a survival game style, pick up loot and fight and work your way inwards and fight with one
Yes.
life.
There's still that's an iteration on it. We've also been working internally to make Sky Zone even more interesting and unique, and I've given my own ideas there to the team. Because in my opinion, like what makes survival games a fun game concept is the pressure of only having one life.
Hmm.
And so if you're going to try to keep that in event format, it makes it really punishing to be a team that's out for a player that's out first or a team that's out first. And
Hmm.
so you need some way to then change that makes it so it's not just you die, you are now completely screwed. And the way that's kind of been done, like battle and Block Wars, you could also say is survival games, even though there's no looting. Like it's just a team
Hmm.
deathmatch, you're forced to the center. But because there's 3 rounds, because there's also capture points, there's the chance for not just one round to be your
Hmm.
downfall.
Yeah, but I guess it's always striking the balance between the fact that in a game like this, you don't want people sitting around and doing nothing because I mean
Mm-hmm.
players don't want to do that. But part of the part of the thing that keeps them kind of stressed and playing in a certain way in the game is that kind of fear that they're gonna get
Yeah.
out early and just have to wait around. Um, it's the same thing of like why in a video game people are gonna act differently than in a game in a game in general where you have one life, people are just gonna act differently, and you can't really recreate that without removing like you can't recreate that feeling to a certain extent. Like it's really hard to do that.
Yes. So, in my opinion, like the best ways that survival games gets redone is you just add other opportunities for points. You make the looting of items not be too RNG dependent. You allow
Mhm,
for some more different styles of gameplay, so it's not just straight PvP or not just straight ambush PvP, which is more the way I describe this.
mhm.
Because
Yeah, like feels like getting
teams never
charged from the
really
back.
fight each other one on one. Instead, teams start a fight, they get pushed out, somebody else comes, cleans up.
Mhm,
Rarely do you actually have the fights to the death between two teams because everyone's always trying to run away. But it's gonna end right here. We're gonna see the final battle, and then Phil's will go back to the lobby and see the winner.
see the score,
I
and
mean,
there isn't an end game.
there
There is
isn't.
it's just the
There's no
winner.
finale game. There's not even announcing the winner. They all just go see it themselves, which is kind of
You'll just
funny.
get like look at a board.
Like I think what we see from watching this is like these games are basic. These games are like literally games you go play on Hypixel right now with your friends. But they
Mhm,
worked at the time. And they could even potentially work now. Like if you had all these things on for like your friends playing an event together, you had like 14 people, 7 duos and played
mhm.
these games, you'd have a good time. But when
Yeah.
if you're trying to like up the quality to make it more interesting, make it more of a unique Minecraft experience, it requires new innovative game design ideas. And so that's a case of you gotta think, go back to the drawing board and see what you can come up with.
Yeah.
But that is it for this week, Gillen. Anything else? Last notes you want to say?
No. Well, not really. I mean, all I really wanted to say was that I'm happy to see how far we've got. It's been nice to relate to how far micro events have gone over the last few years, going from something as simple to that to yesterday watching MCC and seeing all these custom games and unique icons and models and all this stuff. And I also right afterwards, because during the admin stream they were talking about MCC Island, I also went on to like Origin Realms just to look
Mm-hmm.
around because they had some updates recently and look at some of the stuff they've added. It's just a reminder of just how far both in the event scene and server scene, Java Minecraft especially has gone, um, to kind of having servers and events have more of a unique art style and kind of feel different. Because with Minecraft Monday, it was almost kind of like that was the Minecraft event that like it just felt like it was Minecraft. It wasn't its own thing. It just kind of felt like it was this part of Minecraft. While, when I look at something like MCC, it feels very unique. Like to a certain point, it almost feels different than Minecraft,
Yeah,
like it's building on top of it.
it's doing the next iterations of making the Minecraft experience unique and fun.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so we're excited to see where it keeps going. Let us know in the comments again who you want us to interview next week, and we'll see you then.